Opening hook. Humanity's shocking decision. Hook and suspense. The galaxy had always been a place of careful balance. Alien species, each with their own desires and ambitions, had learned to work together, or at least coexist, under the guidance of the Galactic Council. Humanity, a relatively young species compared to the ancient civilizations of the galaxy, had always played a vital role in keeping the peace. Their strategic minds, technological advancements, and unmatched resolve had made them respected allies in the galactic political game. But now, something unexpected was happening. A sudden message flashed across every screen in the galaxy, from the farthest reaches of the known universe to the core systems where the richest and most powerful species resided. It was a transmission from the humans, an announcement that would send ripples through the entire galaxy. The Galactic Council had called for an urgent session, expecting humanity to give its usual input, but instead, humanity had made an unthinkable decision. They were walking away. Humanity is officially withdrawing from all galactic politics, the message echoed, sending shockwaves through every star system. The words felt surreal, impossible, as though the universe itself had been turned upside down. The Galactic Council, which had once relied heavily on humanity's influence, went silent. The weight of the decision was too much to grasp at first. How could they leave? Why now? And most importantly, what would happen to the galaxy without them? The universe had grown accustomed to humanity's leadership and protection, especially in times of conflict. Their history showed how they had acted swiftly, decisively, and often selflessly when others hesitated. To pull back now felt like a betrayal. It was a slap in the face to every species that depended on their strength and wisdom. The first to react were the leaders of the larger, more powerful species, the Galactic Federation, a group that had always been in the favor of humanity, convened immediately. Their representatives, wide-eyed and frantic, scrambled to understand the reasons behind this sudden withdrawal. It didn't make sense. Humanity had always been at the center of galactic politics, often acting as mediators between conflicting factions, helping prevent wars, and maintaining a sense of order. "We cannot afford this," an elder of the Federation stated, his voice shaking with fear. "The balance we've established could shatter without them." Across the universe, smaller planets and species that had always relied on humanity for trade, technology, and military protection began to panic. Leaders who had once called on the humans for guidance now found themselves stranded with no clear direction. The humans had been the backbone of galactic stability. Without them, the entire system seemed fragile, like a house of cards about to collapse. But while fear spread through the galaxy, there were whispers in the shadows. Some speculated that this sudden move was not just about politics. Was it possible that humanity knew something the others didn't? Were they preparing for something bigger, something dangerous? On the border of the galaxy, an unknown enemy had begun to stir. Their ships, silent and cloaked, had started appearing on distant planets, attacking without warning. No one knew who they were or where they came from, but their brutal efficiency left no doubt that they were a serious threat. Could humanity's decision to pull away from galactic politics have anything to do with this new menace? As the hours passed, the panic began to spread. Some species tried to fill the void left by humanity, but they found themselves outmatched, unprepared, and unable to handle the growing instability. A wave of uncertainty washed over the galaxy. The Council called for emergency sessions, but no one knew how to move forward. Meanwhile, on Earth, the leaders of humanity sat in silence. They knew the weight of their decision. They had walked away from everything they had built in the galaxy. The Galactic Council's plea for intervention was ignored. Humanity had made its choice, and now they would have to face the consequences. Was it the right decision? Was walking away the best way forward for humanity? No one knew. But as the message ended, a feeling of finality filled the air. There would be no turning back. And the universe, it was left to wonder. What would happen now that humanity, the once glorious power, had abandoned galactic politics? Would the universe crumble without them, or was this the beginning of a new era, one that humanity had chosen to face alone? As the stars continued to shine in the cold, dark void of space, the universe held its breath, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. The galactic response. Chaos begins. The announcement from humanity spread like wildfire. The galaxy was in shock. The Galactic Council, once a body of unity and coordination, was now struggling to stay intact. The powerful species that once relied on humanity's decisions were now uncertain. No one knew what to do. Immediately, the largest galactic powers convened, the representatives of the Andromeda Syndicate, the Lorian Empire, and the Pax Federation, each with their own agendas, demanded a response. A sense of panic gripped them. Humanity had always been there to offer a steady hand when tensions rose, to step in and mediate when the galaxy seemed on the brink of war. But now, with humanity absent, the fear of war became all too real. The humans leaving. This cannot be allowed to happen, said Nira, the leader of the Andromeda Syndicate, her voice trembling with worry. She was known for her calm demeanor, but the withdrawal of humanity had shaken even her. We need their influence. Without it, chaos will consume us all. The members of the Lorian Empire were equally concerned. Their vast empire had long relied on the trade routes that humanity helped maintain. The sudden disappearance of humanity from the political stage left their markets unstable, and their military alliances were in jeopardy. "We cannot let this stand," said Emperor Drake, his voice booming as he addressed the council. "Humanity has always been the glue that held us together. If they pull away now, the entire balance of power will shift, and we will be left vulnerable." But as the most powerful species scrambled to form a plan, a strange quiet seemed to fall over the galaxy. The smallest planets, the ones that had never been involved in major politics, began to realize just how much they depended on humanity. Without their steady hand, there was no one left to protect them. They were alone. "We're abandoned," said Zoltha, the representative from a small moon on the edge of the galaxy. "What are we supposed to do now? If we don't have humanity's strength, we'll be wiped out by the larger empires." Suddenly, whispers filled the air. Some feared that without humanity's protection, the galaxy was vulnerable to the mysterious alien threat that had begun to appear on the edges of known space. Ships cloaked in shadow, attacks on neutral planets, and entire systems vanishing without a trace. The more they thought about it, the more it seemed clear. This new enemy had been waiting for this moment, waiting for humanity to turn its back on galactic politics. As panic spread across the stars, a council representative from the Pax Federation stood up, eyes wide with realization. "The attacks, they'd started already. We were too focused on the humans leaving to notice the signs of this enemy." His voice was filled with dread. "They're using this opportunity to strike. Humanity may have pulled away, but the threat is real. If we don't act fast, we might be the next victims." A chorus of alarmed voices followed, with representatives from every corner of the galaxy now questioning their next moves. Should they focus on the new alien threat, or should they try to convince humanity to return to their political duties? The debate was fierce, but no one could come to a clear solution. Some were too proud to beg humanity for help, while others feared the growing alien forces too much to remain divided. Meanwhile, on Earth, a select group of human leaders met in secret. They were watching the galaxy unravel, understanding the weight of their decision. The universe was beginning to realize just how dependent they were on humanity's involvement. But despite the chaos, they still stood by their decision. Humanity would no longer serve as the galaxy's savior. The question now was, could the galaxy survive without them? And more importantly, would humanity ever return to fix the mess they had left behind? The universe waited, its fate hanging in the balance. The suspense grew as the first signs of a larger war became evident. Something had shifted in the galaxy, and no one knew if they were ready for the consequences. The fear was real, and with every passing day, the future seemed more uncertain. A powerful new threat emerges. The chaos in the galaxy deepened. As the leaders of various empires scrambled to restore order, something more dangerous was brewing in the shadows. It started slowly at first, a few isolated attacks on outlying colonies, unmarked ships appearing from the dark corners of the galaxy. But as the weeks passed, it became clear the universe was under threat from an enemy unlike anything it had ever encountered. No one knew who they were or where they came from. Their ships were sleek, silent, and nearly invisible to sensors. Their technology was beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. There were no names, no symbols to identify them. Just a deadly and efficient force sweeping across neutral space. Systems were destroyed without warning. Entire planets turned into nothing but dust. The first planet to fall was Talmaris, a peaceful world that had stayed neutral in galactic politics for centuries. One day, it was thriving. The next, it was silent. No distress signals were sent. No survivors were found. The only sign of the attack was a small, glowing crater where the capital city once stood. A message was intercepted shortly after the attack, and it sent shivers through the entire galaxy. It was simple, almost mocking. Your galaxy is weak. We are here to end your reign. The message was signed with a symbol none had ever seen before, an emblem resembling a black spiral. It sent waves of fear through every species. This new enemy was not like anything they had faced. There was no diplomacy, no negotiation. They attacked without mercy. The humans, whispered some. They must have known. This is why they left. They knew we weren't ready for this. But as the galaxy panicked, there was little humanity could do. They had made their choice. The door to galactic politics had been closed, and now no one knew if humanity would even respond to the growing threat. In the halls of the Galactic Council, debates rage. Should they try to force humanity's return to the galactic stage? Should they go to Earth and beg for help? It didn't take long for the decision to be made. Someone had to take action. We cannot wait any longer, said Trilos, the representative from the Pax Federation, his voice steady but filled with urgency. This enemy is moving too fast. We must form an alliance, one that includes every species, with or without humanity's help. If we don't act now, we will all be doomed. But forming an alliance was easier said than done. The political landscape was now fractured, with factions refusing to cooperate, distrust growing between former allies. Every species was focused on its own survival, and the fear of the unknown enemy overshadowed everything else. The galaxy had become a powder keg, with tension building in every corner of space. Meanwhile, the mysterious enemy continued its rampage, systematically targeting vulnerable planets and leaving no survivors. Rumors spread that they could control minds, that they were able to turn entire populations into mindless soldiers. Fear of this new alien force quickly turned into desperation. On Earth, the decision to stay out of galactic politics was starting to feel like a mistake. The leaders knew the universe was descending into chaos, but they were not willing to get involved. At least not yet. Humanity had turned inward, focusing on its own recovery. They had turned their back on the galaxy, but did that mean they would let it burn? In a dark room on Earth, a group of humans gathered in secret. They were from all walks of life, military leaders, scientists, former diplomats, but they shared one thing in common: the belief that humanity could not turn its back on the galaxy forever. One of them, a former general named Marcus, stood up and spoke quietly but firmly. We've already abandoned them. But this is not about politics anymore. This is survival. This is our fight too. We cannot let the galaxy fall. We have to act. The others nodded, their faces grave. It was clear that, despite their decision to withdraw, humanity could no longer ignore the growing threat. They would have to find a way to intervene, not for politics, but for survival. The first step was clear. Humanity had to learn everything they could about this new enemy, and quickly. No one knew if they could stop them, but if there was even a chance, they had to take it. In the depths of space, the mysterious enemy continued its march, leaving death and destruction in its wake. The universe was in panic. The question on everyone's mind was not just how to survive, but whether they could do so without humanity's help. The galaxy was crumbling under the weight of uncertainty and fear. The fate of the universe was now in question, and no one knew if the galaxy would ever recover from the shockwave caused by humanity's departure. Humanity's unseen role. As the galaxy plunged deeper into chaos, some began to reflect on the past, on the moments when humanity had been the keystone of galactic politics. Though they had long since pulled away, the role humanity had played in the galaxy could not be easily erased. Their withdrawal had left more than just a political void. It had revealed the true cost of their absence. The first sign came when the Galactic Council attempted to organize a coordinated response to the new alien threat. The leaders of the largest empires met, but despite their overwhelming power, they found themselves unable to act quickly. Their bureaucratic red tape slowed everything down. No one trusted anyone else enough to take decisive action. Every species had its own interests to protect, and the complex web of treaties and alliances they had built over centuries became an obstacle to unity. Back in the past, humanity had been the bridge between these powerful factions. Their diplomats, military strategists, and leaders had always been the ones to help settle disputes, diffuse tensions, and bring order to the galaxy. Humanity had played a pivotal role in maintaining balance, often acting as neutral parties in negotiations. But now, without them, the entire system was collapsing. The Lorian Empire, for example, had always relied on humanity's military expertise to secure their borders and maintain peace with their neighbors. When the humans had been around, the Lorians felt safer, knowing that they had humanity's advanced technology and strategic minds on their side. But now, without humanity, they had to rely solely on their own resources that were stretched thin due to the alien threat. They soon realized how much they had depended on humanity's support, not just in battle, but in diplomacy and trade. On the other side of the galaxy, the Andromeda Syndicate, a group of powerful corporations that ruled through wealth and influence, had also relied on humanity's stability to keep their trade routes secure. Without humanity's presence, piracy had flourished. Space lanes were no longer safe, and shipments of valuable goods were being intercepted by unknown forces. The Syndicate's leaders scrambled to fill the vacuum, but their lack of unity only made things worse. For the smaller systems, the loss of humanity's influence was even more profound. Many of them had been under humanity's protection, often serving as allies or trading partners in exchange for military support. With humanity gone, they were now exposed to the rising power of the mysterious alien invaders. Without a strong force to protect them, many of these smaller planets were quickly falling. Some even sent desperate, whispered messages to the humans, begging them to return before it was too late. Back on Earth, the leaders who had made the decision to withdraw from galactic politics were now beginning to question it. They had believed that humanity's retreat from the galactic stage would lead to peace, but it seemed that the universe had only descended into more chaos. Yet, they still held firm to their decision. After all, their place was among the stars, not as a galactic protector, but as a species that had learned to grow on its own. However, there were those among humanity who had begun to question whether that was enough. One of them, a former ambassador named Elena, had spent years negotiating with alien species. She had worked with every major empire in the galaxy, building trust and forging alliances. And now, as she looked at the galaxy's unraveling, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that humanity had made a grave mistake. "We cannot stand by and watch," she said, speaking to a secret group of military leaders and scientists. "The galaxy needs us. We may have chosen to walk away, but we can't turn our backs on everything we helped build. If we don't intervene, everything we fought for will be lost." Elena's words stirred something in the hearts of those who heard them. They knew the cost of turning back. If they tried to return, the galaxy might view it as a betrayal. But the stakes were too high to ignore. The alien threat was real, and if they didn't act, humanity might lose everything they had worked for. The galaxy would fall into chaos, and the opportunity to make a difference might slip away forever. In secret, a plan began to form. A small group of humans, veterans of the galactic wars and former diplomats, gathered in the shadows. They knew that they could not act openly. They would have to work in the dark, outside the reach of galactic politics, and reach out to those who still believed in humanity's role. It was a risky move, one that could have devastating consequences, but they had no other choice. They would need to find a way to stop the alien invaders before they could completely tear apart the fabric of the galaxy. But as humanity started to realize its true role, the universe, too, was starting to wake up. The balance of power had shifted, and now everyone knew that the galaxy could never be the same. Would humanity answer the call, or would they allow the universe to burn? A last hope. The galaxy teetered on the edge of destruction, with chaos sweeping across once peaceful systems. The mysterious enemy continued its relentless attacks, conquering planets, wiping out entire civilizations, and leaving fear in its wake. The empires, fractured and divided, could not stop the onslaught. It was clear that the galaxy was losing its battle for survival. The time for diplomacy had passed, and the universe was now facing a war unlike any it had ever known. And yet, in the midst of this growing darkness, a small group of humans began to gather in secret. They were not the government leaders who had made the decision to withdraw. No, this group was made up of former soldiers, scientists, diplomats, and military strategists. Those who had once been at the heart of humanity's involvement in galactic politics. They had come together out of desperation, united by one belief. Humanity could not turn its back on the galaxy, not now. "We have to do something," Elena said, standing before the group. She had been the voice of reason, the one who had always believed that humanity's strength lay in its ability to lead, to protect, to guide. The enemy is unstoppable. The galaxy is on the brink of collapse, and no one is coming to help. It's up to us. The room was silent. The weight of the decision hung heavily in the air. Each person in the room knew the cost of re-entering the fray. They had left behind a life of peace and rebuilding on Earth, but now they were being called to sacrifice everything once again for the galaxy. A former general, Marcus, stood up next, his face grave but resolute. "The universe needs us. We've always been the ones who stood between chaos and order. Without us, everything we've worked for, all the alliances, all the peace, it's falling apart." "But how do we even begin?" asked Dr. Callis, a scientist who had once worked with the best minds of the galaxy. "We don't even know where this enemy came from, or how to stop them." Elena's eyes hardened. "That's exactly why we need to act fast. If we don't know who they are, we need to learn. We need to find out everything we can about them. And we need to do it before it's too late." The group knew that time was running out. The mysterious enemy was not only powerful, they were clever. They had been taking out entire planets without warning, their attacks precise and devastating. Every planet they destroyed was a loss for the entire galaxy, a piece of the puzzle that would never be returned. But there was still hope. As long as humanity acted quickly, as long as they could unite their strength, they might be able to make a difference. A plan began to take shape. First, they would need to gather intelligence. Earth, despite its withdrawal from galactic politics, still had vast resources and technology that the rest of the galaxy did not. They would need to use every advantage they had, from old allies to new technology that had been secretly developed on Earth. But they couldn't go public. This mission would have to be done covertly. If the galactic powers knew humanity was returning, it might cause even more division, more chaos. This had to be done quietly, without anyone knowing. Elena and Marcus knew that they would have to get close to the enemy. They would need to send out reconnaissance teams, infiltrating the enemy's ranks if necessary. The goal was simple: learn the enemy's weaknesses and find a way to turn the tide before it was too late. Meanwhile, Across the galaxy, the panic continued. The alien invaders had grown bolder, taking entire systems without a second thought. Desperation was settling in. The smaller planets had no defense. The empires, fractured and self-serving, were too busy fighting among themselves to unite. The situation seemed hopeless, but humanity's covert operations began to bear fruit. A small group of soldiers, led by Marcus, infiltrated a system near the core, the first to come into contact with the invaders on a personal level. What they discovered was shocking. These invaders were not simply an external threat. They were controlled by an advanced alien force that operated from the shadows, manipulating entire systems without anyone knowing. The more the humans uncovered, the more they realized the true scale of the threat. This enemy wasn't just looking to conquer. They were after something far more dangerous: control over the very fabric of the galaxy itself. They had technology that could bend the will of entire populations, and they weren't just targeting planets for resources. They were systematically eliminating anyone who could resist them. But as humanity started to realize its true role, the universe, too, was starting to wake up. The balance of power had shifted, and now everyone knew that the galaxy could never be the same. Would humanity answer the call, or would they allow the universe to burn? A last hope. The galaxy teetered on the edge of destruction, with chaos sweeping across once peaceful systems. The mysterious enemy continued its relentless attacks, conquering planets, wiping out entire civilizations, and leaving fear in its wake. The empires, fractured and divided, could not stop the onslaught. It was clear that the galaxy was losing its battle for survival. The time for diplomacy had passed, and the universe was now facing a war unlike any it had ever known. And yet, in the midst of this growing darkness, a small group of humans began to gather in secret. They were not the government leaders who had made the decision to withdraw. No, this group was made up of former soldiers, scientists, diplomats, and military strategists, those who had once been at the heart of humanity's involvement in galactic politics. They had come together out of desperation, united by one belief: humanity could not turn its back on the galaxy, not now. "We have to do something," Elena said, standing before the group. She had been the voice of reason, the one who had always believed that humanity's strength lay in its ability to lead, to protect, to guide. The enemy is unstoppable. The galaxy is on the brink of collapse, and no one is coming to help. It's up to us. The room was silent. The weight of the decision hung heavily in the air. Each person in the room knew the cost of re-entering the fray. They had left behind a life of peace and rebuilding on Earth, but now they were being called to sacrifice everything once again for the galaxy. A former general, Marcus, stood up next, his face grave but resolute. "The universe needs us. We've always been the ones who stood between chaos and order. Without us, everything we've worked for, all the alliances, all the peace, it's falling apart." "But how do we even begin?" asked Dr. Callis, a scientist who had once worked with the best minds of the galaxy. "We don't even know where this enemy came from or how to stop them." Elena's eyes hardened. "That's exactly why we need to act fast. If we don't know who they are, we need to learn. We need to find out everything we can about them. And we need to do it before it's too late." The group knew that time was running out. The mysterious enemy was not only powerful, they were clever. They had been taking out entire planets without warning, their attacks precise and devastating. Every planet they destroyed was a loss for the entire galaxy, a piece of the puzzle that would never be returned. But there was still hope. As long as humanity acted quickly, as long as they could unite their strength, they might be able to make a difference. A plan began to take shape. First, they would need to gather intelligence. Earth, despite its withdrawal from galactic politics, still had vast resources and technology that the rest of the galaxy did not. They would need to use every advantage they had, from old allies to new technology that had been secretly developed on Earth. But they couldn't go public. This mission would have to be done covertly. If the galactic powers knew humanity was returning, it might cause even more division, more chaos. This had to be done quietly, without anyone knowing. Elena and Marcus knew that they would have to get close to the enemy. They would need to send out reconnaissance teams, infiltrating the enemy's ranks if necessary. The goal was simple: learn the enemy's weaknesses and find a way to turn the tide before it was too late. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the panic continued. The alien invaders had grown bolder, taking entire systems without a second thought. Desperation was settling in. The smaller planets had no defense. The empires, fractured and self-serving, were too busy fighting among themselves to unite. The situation seemed hopeless. But humanity's covert operations began to bear fruit. A small group of soldiers, led by Marcus, infiltrated a system near the core, the first to come into contact with the invaders on a personal level. What they discovered was shocking. These invaders were not simply an external threat. They were controlled by an advanced alien force that operated from the shadows, manipulating entire systems without anyone knowing. The more the humans uncovered, the more they realized the true scale of the threat. This enemy wasn't just looking to conquer. They were after something far more dangerous: control over the very fabric of the galaxy itself. They had technology that could bend the will of entire populations, and they weren't just targeting planets for resources. They were systematically eliminating anyone who could resist them. Elena, upon hearing the news, knew the situation was even worse than they had thought. This wasn't just a war for survival. It was a battle for the soul of the galaxy itself. The only way to fight back was to unite the fractured empires and lead them into a unified resistance against the invaders. But unity was still a distant dream. The galaxy was still divided, still too full of mistrust and fear. The question remained: could humanity, once the glue that held the galaxy together, truly unite the fractured species of the universe before it was too late? Or would the galaxy fall to the shadows that now crept across the stars? The first small victories began to emerge, but it was clear that this was just the beginning of a much larger struggle. The fate of the galaxy was still hanging by a thread, and the next steps humanity took would determine whether that thread would snap. The battle for the future. The galaxy was now a battlefield. Across the stars, entire systems were under siege by the mysterious alien invaders. Cities burned, and entire populations vanished without a trace. Despite the initial panic and disarray, a small resistance movement had begun to take shape, and at the heart of this resistance was humanity, driven by the need to protect the galaxy they had once helped build. The covert operations led by humanity had provided valuable intelligence. The enemy, though powerful, was not invincible. They had weaknesses hidden deep within their technology. If humanity could expose those vulnerabilities, the balance of power could shift in their favor. But it wasn't going to be easy. The enemy was relentless, and their ability to control minds made them even more dangerous. Marcus, the former general leading one of the most crucial operations, stood with his team on the deck of a newly built warship, far from Earth. He looked out at the vast expanse of space, the stars glittering like cold jewels, and knew that the moment had come. The resistance had gathered an army, and it was ready to fight. But it wouldn't be enough unless they could unite the fractured galactic empires. The clock was ticking, and time was not on their side. "We need more than just a plan," Marcus said to his team. "We need to show the galaxy that they're not alone. If we're going to take this fight to the invaders, we need the entire galaxy united." His words weighed heavily on them. Humanity had once been the glue that held the galaxy together, but the scars of the past were deep. Many species still remembered how humanity had turned its back on galactic politics. Trust had been broken, and alliances had splintered. But there was no choice. Either the galaxy stood together, or they would fall one by one. The first battle came faster than anyone expected. A massive fleet of alien ships, dark and menacing, appeared in the Zoran system, ready to crush what little resistance remained. Humanity had gathered a small fleet of ships to intercept the invaders, but it was no match for the overwhelming power of the enemy. "We don't have the numbers," Dr. Callis, the scientist, said as she studied the enemy's fleet. "But we do have a plan. We know their weakness." The plan was simple, but dangerous. Humanity had developed a new form of weaponry, a disruptive pulse that could interfere with the invaders' mind control technology. If they could get close enough to the enemy fleet, they might be able to use the pulse to disable their control systems, rendering the invaders' forces useless. But getting close would be a challenge. The enemy ships were heavily guarded, and the pulse needed to be deployed at the right moment. As the battle began, humanity's fleet surged forward. The enemy responded with terrifying force, their ships moving with deadly precision. The first few exchanges were chaotic, with both sides taking heavy losses. The resistance fighters held their ground, but it was clear that they were outgunned. The invaders, with their superior technology and mind-controlled soldiers, pushed them back at every turn. But just as the tide seemed to be turning against them, Marcus gave the order. The flagship, a massive human cruiser, fired its weapon, the disruptive pulse. It sent a wave of energy rippling through the enemy fleet, and for a brief moment, the invaders' ships faltered. The pulse had worked. Their mind control systems were scrambled. The enemy's forces, once under perfect control, now acted erratically. "This is our chance," the Lina shouted over the comms. "We can break them." With the invaders' control systems down, humanity's fleet launched a full-scale attack. The resistance fighters pressed forward with renewed determination, striking the alien ships where they were most vulnerable. The battle raged on for hours, but slowly the tide began to turn in favor of the resistance. Despite the early setbacks, humanity's intervention had given the galaxy a fighting chance. The invaders, now disorganized and weakened, were pushed back. The resistance was starting to win, but the battle was far from over. There were still too many unknowns. The true power behind the invaders, their leader, their true goals, remained a mystery. As the enemy retreated from the Zoran system, the resistance cheered, but they knew this victory was only a small part of a much larger war. The galaxy had not been saved yet. There were still countless systems to liberate, and the alien forces were still lurking in the shadows. Marcus stood on the bridge of the human warship, looking out into the vastness of space. The victory had given him hope, but he knew the fight was far from over. The enemy was powerful, but humanity had proven that it could still fight. And if they could continue to unite the galaxy, if they could push back against the invaders, there might just be a future worth saving. "We've taken the first step," Marcus said, his voice steady. "But this is just the beginning. We'll fight for every world, for every star system. We'll make sure this galaxy survives." But as the humans and their allies celebrated their hard-fought victory, something far darker stirred in the background. The alien invaders may have been pushed back, but they were not defeated. And the true leader of this mysterious enemy had only begun to reveal his plan. Resolution. A new era begins. The echoes of the great battle still reverberated through the galaxy. The Zoran system, once a flashpoint of destruction, now lay silent. Its shattered remains a testament to the fierce fight that had taken place. The resistance, bolstered by humanity's timely intervention, had scored a significant victory. The alien invaders, though not entirely defeated, had been pushed back, at least for now. Yet despite their retreat, an unsettling silence filled the void. The universe knew this was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, the different species that had once been fractured began to recognize the importance of unity. The most powerful empires, who had long mistrusted each other, now understood that their individual strength would never be enough to withstand the new enemy. The battle had proven that only together could they hope to survive. Even the once wary smaller planets, those that had been abandoned by the galactic powers, now reached out to form new alliances, pledging their support to the fight. But the true cost of the war was only beginning to show. The countless worlds lost to the invaders left scars. both physical and emotional, that would not be easily healed. Families were torn apart. Entire cultures had been erased. And yet, there was hope. Humanity, once reluctant to rejoin the galactic stage, now stood at the forefront of the rebuilding process. Their knowledge, technology, and resolve had made all the difference, and their leadership was no longer questioned. Back on Earth, leaders from across the galaxy had gathered. The decision to act had not come without consequences, but humanity's role in the defense of the galaxy could no longer be denied. The once divided factions now sat side by side, eager to chart a new course, one where cooperation and peace could flourish, free from the chaos of the past. At the center of the gathering stood Elena, Marcus, and the other members of the human resistance. Their faces were tired, but there was a quiet pride in their eyes. They had done what many thought impossible. They had turned the tide of war. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not just a bystander, but a vital force for peace. "We've won this battle," Elena said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But this war is far from over. The invaders are still out there, and we cannot rest until the last of them is gone. Our work is just beginning." The room fell silent. It was clear that the war was far from finished. The alien invaders had retreated for now, but their true leader, whose name and face were still shrouded in mystery, was far from defeated. The galaxy had been given a moment of respite, but the looming threat of another invasion, another battle, could strike at any time. Yet despite the uncertainty, the tone in the room had shifted. The galaxy had been given a second chance. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving. It was about rebuilding what had been broken, creating a new future for all the species that called the galaxy home. The horrors of the past were still fresh, but they would not define the future. The species of the galaxy now stood united, stronger than they had ever been before. Marcus stood next to Elena, his eyes fixed on the starry expanse outside the window. The battle had been brutal, but it had proven that humanity could still lead. And now, as the galaxy entered a new chapter, humanity had to prove that they could bring lasting peace. "We've shown them that we will fight for this galaxy," Marcus said quietly. "But we need to show them something more. We need to show them that we can rebuild, that we can offer hope." As the leaders of the galaxy made their pledges, humanity stood at the helm, ready to lead the way. The war was not over, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope. A hope that the universe could be healed. A hope that the galaxy could rise from the ashes, stronger than ever before. As the final speeches echoed through the hall, a new alliance was formed, a united front against the darkness that had nearly consumed them all. The galaxy, once fractured and divided, had found its strength in unity. Humanity had played a pivotal role in restoring that unity, and now they were poised to lead the charge into an uncertain future. But in the far reaches of space, in the shadows where no one could see, the invaders were regrouping. The war was not over, and the true test of humanity's resolve had yet to come. And so, with the galaxy on the brink of a new era, the fate of the universe was still in the hands of those willing to fight, to sacrifice, and to believe in the hope of a better future.